All right, good morning. Um, First, actually, I noticed yesterday I ended up being a little bit better, even slightly better, after doing the video. Even before I posted it or anything like that, I feel like it just focused me. I was a little bit more focused yesterday. Um, my mood was a little bit better, a little bit less stressed. So, whether or not that was because of doing the video, we'll find out after a few more of these. So today, I want to talk about fear. It's something, more specifically, fear of failure. So as a child, I always had this incredible fear and anxiety around doing anything, around being people, really just around life. And the older I get, the more I realize that this particular fear is a fear of failure. Uh, I would say in my young adulthood, well, I guess I'm still in my young adult, but I would say in my 20s, there were so many things that I was afraid to do, but I still did them anyways. And I was able to push through and just force myself to do it. Basically, taking one step at a time, putting myself in situations that I know I wanted, but I was afraid. So I would just put myself in the situation after trying to overcome that fear, which would then force me to have to continue, like, taking a job where I was afraid, but you just accept it and there's nothing you can do. You have to go do it. Taking these steps. But lately, I would say the last few years, I've had a harder and harder time actually doing that and going forward and putting myself out there. I'm still doing the steps to put myself out there, um, but there's just so much fear and anxiety that I'm not doing it with my whole heart. For instance, Depths of Creativity, which is a community I'm trying to launch for photographers and creatives. It's officially launched and ready for people to join the waiting list, but I haven't marketed, I haven't really told anybody about it. Um, my photography, there's some programs that I want to launch, some types of photography. I really want to do portrait photography, beauty photography, and family documentary photography. Um, I think about them all the time. These are the things that I want to do, especially the family documentary photography. Uh, I've done a couple of trial sessions. I know it's something I want to do. I haven't told anybody that I'm officially doing that. I haven't marketed it. I haven't pushed it all on it. It just kind of sits in the back of my mind and eats away at me, knowing that there's something that I want to do that is fulfilling, that I feel like is really good for people, and I just can't get myself to really push with my whole heart and to start doing it. Um, the portrait photography, the beauty photography, there's some people I can call to get that going, and I just don't, because I'm afraid. I'm afraid of failing. I'm afraid that it's not going to be good, or afraid that it's going to, I don't know, like, I'm tired, and I think part of that is that mental exhaustion that I have every day, and to think about adding these things to my life, it really just, I don't know, I'm afraid, like, well, I'm not going to have the energy, I'm not going to be able to do it well, and then just taking increased risks with other things, calculated risks, good risks, things that I know could pay off. I've just been always so afraid. I've always been one that has to follow the rules, to be in the box, and to do everything by the book. If it hasn't been written about and it hasn't been done before, I've never been able to just experiment and to try stuff. There's always that line, and it's so hard for me to get just even a little bit past that line. And I envy people who can think of new things, who can push outside the box and not be so confined in their minds with these just this mental cage. And I think it's really all just a fear of failing. And the reason why I'm so afraid of failing is because I tie my ability to be loved, meaning people loving me, to my performance in life. Am I a good parent? Am I doing well at the things that I set out to do with my job, photography, anything, any endeavor? In the relationship, have I done everything that I could? And if I feel as though I failed in any way, then I feel that I become unlovable. I already have a hard time believing that people actually care and love for me, but that's another topic. So I really think that part of that fear of failure is linked to that fear of being unlovable, and that fear that people wouldn't care for me anymore if there wasn't value that I could provide to the life because I'm good at something, as opposed to people loving me on the basis of just who I am. So that's always on top of mind, especially today. Like, it just keeps nagging away at me. This podcast that I'm trying to launch with my good friend, and I don't want to hold him back. Sometimes I feel like I do. So fear of failing and becoming unlovable, fear of failing and losing everything that I have from, just physical possessions, money, and family, healthcare. I'm just afraid to lose all of these things, and that all ties back to performance. And I don't want to lose them. They've bringing good things. I'm afraid of like losing my job, losing healthcare, that my wife wouldn't have her healthcare that she needs to keep her alive. And then just not being able to provide for my kids, to give them the chances in life to work on their passions and the things that they need. Making sure that I can be successful in fighting my mental health issues, and fighting just like these weird oddities and quirks that I have in my personality, because I see a lot of it in my kids, especially my daughter, and I really need to be successful in helping myself, so that way I can teach her. She's getting older and older. Fear is a pretty big component of my life. I think it's a big component for all of our lives. To some extent, we're all afraid of something. I think we're all afraid of failure too. It's just having the courage and the ability to move beyond that fear of failure, and being able to push through. But for me, it was really, really bad as a child, and then, I would say like end of high school, all through my 20s, I was able to kind of push beyond that, and I think because my responsibility wasn't as much, whereas now 3 kids, wife, a job, like there's a lot more at stake for me to take risks, and there's a lot more at stake for me to fail. And I think that's partly why I'm becoming more and more afraid of failure. But even things like doing the photography and stuff like that, like there's no permanent damage that would ever happen if I failed, by my standard of failing. And yet I'm still afraid, and I think too, because it's so personal. If you want to say it's an art, it's so personal. It's so much of me. And maybe failing that is a rejection of, if people reject my art, my photography, then I almost could feel like that's a rejection of me, where I think I need to separate the two a little bit, pour my whole self into my art and put myself into there, but separate myself from the response of people. Like I had a gallery showing and it didn't go that great. And I have to see that as not a rejection of me, but just not the right time, just not the right people saw it. Maybe it wasn't my best photos, whatever it is, like, it's not a rejection of me. But a lot of times I take stuff so personal like that. So, yeah, so that's all I have for today is fear. Fear is definitely one of the root components of my behavior. My anxiety is always with me, tied to job performance, performance in life, performance in whatever I do. So yeah, it's been getting harder to overcome that as I get older or as responsibilities change, as circumstances in my life change. But I'm still taking steps to go try to push beyond that. It's just going a lot slower than it normally does for me, and it's a lot harder for me to have that motivation and excitement to move beyond that fear. So yeah, comment if you have the same thing, if I'm not alone in this. Yeah, it'd be great to hear your thoughts. Thanks, take care.